Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the What the Fantasy Football Show. I am your host tonight, Jim Day, a.k.a. Fantasy Taz on Twitter. Unfortunately, Mr. Tony Sincata cannot be with us tonight. He had, the luck of being able to go see a Bette Midler concert tonight, so he couldn't make the podcast. Hopefully, we'll get him back next week. Maybe, I don't know, maybe tours with Bette. We'll have to see. You never know when Tony is involved what may happen next. Of course, we are a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network, 18 podcasts strong. We're about to add a couple more. Come check us out. You can find us at fulltimefantasy.com. Drop-down menu for the podcast. You can listen to each and every one. We have Superflex covered. We have Dynasty covered. We have Redraft, of course, covered. IDP covered. We got a little bit of everything coming at you. And, of course, we got some more coming at you as well. So make sure you go check it out. Full-Time Fantasy, the podcast. Drop down tab. You'll see everything you want to see. And of course, the What the Fantasy Football Show is there as well. You can listen to all our past performances, I want to say, and just see how crazy we do get sometimes. Now I'm going to bring on my co-host for the evening and for every Wednesday evening, and that's Mr. Mike Blewitt. Mike, how you doing tonight?
What's going on, Jim? Excited to have week one games to talk about. We'll be finally talking about the games that matter. No more drafts, no more ADP talk, unless we're relaying it back to what a great value we got or what a bust was. But excited to talk about the games from week one and looking on to week two.
Well, let me ask you that. Based on that alone, one of the things I keep saying, everybody's asking the questions. We had so many what we would have considered studs or close to studs do nothing in week one. Yeah. And, that's par for the course almost every year. Week one is so hard to tell, who's going to come out and who's not. Just because, especially this year, nobody had any practice time on the field against other opponents. So, makes it harder. A lot of rust we saw in week one. But the one thing I keep coming back to is everybody's asking, why am I overreacting if I want to, let's say, drop Aaron Jones to go get Chris Thompson?
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. I'm just saying, people, slow your roll.
Yeah, I do think because the season feels so short at times, and you feel like you can be out of it after week 8, let's say if you're 2-6 or something like that, I think that's where the panic sets in. The panic sets in when people lose, right? I think the shrewd fantasy owners are looking at snap counts and the usage rate of certain players and understanding that, all right, so Todd Gurley played 70% of the snaps. He got X number of touches. Is it concerning about Malcolm Brown at the goal line? Yeah, but realistically, Todd Gurley is going to get some of those cracks too. So don't panic about him. Aaron Jones was in an extremely negative game script. So, and the concern there obviously is that they shared the ball around a little bit, but it was really a negative game script. I thought both defenses dominated that game. So to suggest that based on that one game, where the offense didn't really do much outside of a 47-yard ridiculous pass from Aaron Rodgers, that guys need to be released or cut. He's still a starting running back on an offense that could produce with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. To compare him to Chris Thompson, I understand what you're saying. Chris Thompson's role obviously could be increased now with Darius Geis on the shelf for a while. It brings Adrian Peterson into the fold. But to your point, I think people need to understand that we're dealing with small sample sizes here. One game does not a season make.
And that's it. People, you got to realize that, look, I tell everybody this all the time. There are times when you get off to a slow start. If you keep making the right move after right move every week, you can get better. Last year, I had one team that started 0-5, and I won the championship with it. You can do it. You just have to keep at it. Don't get disgusted. Don't bail on people after 1 week. Heck, if they're still doing this in week 4, then it's time to start bailing. But after 1 week, absolutely not. And the other thing I try to tell people is now that the drafts are over, don't give a crap about where you drafted a person.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, at this point, it matters not. Like you said earlier, ADP matters not. Where you drafted them matters not. You're going to play the guys that are really performing well, but you have to temper that with expectations that you had preseason too.
Yeah.
Like we were saying, you just can't throw all the stuff, all the work you did all offseason out the window because of one game.
Yeah, look, I do think that within each game, you could see there could be cause for concern with some players. Dante Pettis is only getting 2 snaps, and that's obviously a concern. But at the same time, is John Ross just going to blow the doors off the league in his third year? It's not likely to me. He had an unbelievable game, and kudos to him and anybody that played him, which I doubt there were many. He's really going to be
nobody.
I guess he's going to be just the top waiver wire pick of the week for many people. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be any consistency there. Tyler Boyd had a great season last year when A.J. Green went down. I would assume he's still part of that offense, and A.J. Green's out of a walking boot now. So does John Ross go back to the third most popular wide receiver in Cincinnati soon? That's entirely possible, Jim.
Oh, I absolutely believe it to be possible. Not only possible, I think it's absolutely going to happen. It's not like he's going to supplant A.J. Green at this point. But, A.J. Green has had a couple of years now with the injury bug. So who knows? The one thing I will take away from that John Ross discussion is he actually looked like an NFL receiver.
I agree with that.
Something he hasn't done in his first 2 years at all. He looked
so
lost
injured.
out there. Yeah. Well, not even that. When he was on the field, he still looked lost.
I agree.
He ran so much better routes in week 1 this year than we saw at any time in the first 2 years in the league. So, hey, weirder things have happened. So to just write him off as being somebody who can't take that next step, look, I'm not ready to do that yet. I am worried when A.J. Green comes back, what's going to do.
One caveat to that, though, Jim, on the A.J. Green thing, I just wonder, it's the last year of his deal. He's banged up now for the third year in a row. To the Bengals, even though they won't get much, it's not going to be popular. But do they think about moving on from him, considering the rebuild going on around them? I give them credit for playing the Seahawks tough, but I still expect this team to finish in last place and go under 6 wins. So do we think that they could move on from A.J. Green for a mid-round draft pick just to recoup something? Because they're not going to franchise tag him. And I don't see them giving him a long-term deal at this point. He's hurt for the third year in a row, and they're a cheap team to begin with.
Yeah, right. And very possible they could try and move him, boy. But that fan base would definitely have a thing or two to say about that afterwards.
Yeah, but
local radio would be aglow with phone calls.
Of course.
But you're right. It makes all the sense in the world.
It does make sense. From a football standpoint, you got to move on. Look, the Jets ended up getting nothing for Darrelle Revis back in the day. There are guys that walk away because it's time for them to walk away. And if the Bengals know who they are, have any sense of who they are, then they will consider moving A.J. Green if he can get back on the field, show people that he's healthy for a game or two, and get him out before the deadline. I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying they have to do it. I'm saying they should when they know there's a lot more rebuilding to come, and paying a wide receiver $16 million when you don't have a quarterback yet that you believe in and all these other items, I think it's worth considering moving on from him.
And it would. In that case, John Ross would probably be an excellent pickup.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, it definitely could go either way. The range of outcomes is absolutely there for that to go both ways, no doubt, especially if he continues to play like he did last week. And the thing for me that looking back at the numbers, he played almost 82% of the snaps and actually had a couple more snaps than Tyler Boyd did.
Impressive.
Which I found kind of amusing. I mean, Boyd, like you said, Boyd had such a great year last year, both with or without A.J. Green, and I really expected him to do more with it this year. But again, it was John Ross in week 1. I do expect that to start tilting back towards Boyd, but that doesn't mean that Ross still can't be a good, viable wide receiver 3 or flex option, especially if Andy Dalton continues to throw as much as he did in week 1.
Yeah, my A.J. Green take is not influenced by John Ross playing well, but it can bolster that argument. I've thought for some time that A.J. Green might get moved, and I think his injury prevented that from happening potentially in the preseason. If Ross plays like this a week or two more, it just makes all the sense to move on from A.J. Green when they know they're not going to pay him.
Right. And what are they going to get for him at this point? Coming off the injuries 3 years, you're probably looking at like a 6th-round pick like the Jets gave up for Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
So
hopefully a little more than that, but you're right. It may not be much.
Yeah, it may not be. It's just, age and injuries are against him at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not sure how much people are going to want to give up. Let's face it, most 6th-round draft picks, everybody was going crazy at the Jets for giving up a 6th-round draft pick 2 years from now. And I'm like, who cares? Most 6th-round draft picks don't do anything, folks. It's just the reality of it. Even most 5th-round picks don't do it. Sure, of course, there's going to be guys, diamonds in the rough, that come out of nowhere and have great careers. Absolutely. It happens all the time. But it doesn't happen enough that everybody who gets picked in those rounds is even close to being NFL ready. So
yeah, and the
don't get
Jaguars,
crazy.
the Jaguars are starting their 6th-round pick right now at QB, unexpectedly, obviously, but Minshew is going to be in there now a lot sooner than they would have liked.
Not only that, but I'll tell you what, I did not have a high grade on him coming out in the NFL draft. Didn't think much of him. I figured Foles would be locked in there and ready to go. And of course, he goes out and gets injured right away. But Minshew looked good. I mean, he wasn't, tossing it down the field a ton, but who cares? 88% completion, that's pretty good for a kid coming off the bench who didn't expect to play that day.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be his game. I don't think he's going to be a significant downfield threat, but I think he's going to be accurate. And with the conservative style of offense that they play, that might work out well. D.D. Westbrook in the slot, I think that could work out pretty well. They're playing Houston this week, and Houston's had some struggles against slot receivers. So look for D.D. Westbrook this week. Additionally, but the one guy you're thinking of for home run hitting on the Jags is DJ Shark. So we'll see if
or Chris Conley.
Yeah,
he's got that
Conley
kind of speed as well.
Yeah, Conley got banged up the other day, so hopefully he's back in full practice this week. But maybe that receiving core that we really doubted is a little deeper than expected.
Well, they sure did a number last week, no doubt about it. They really came out to play last week, so it would be interesting to see how it goes. Okay, so we got to talk about the elephant in the room, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because everybody in the world's talking about it. But Antonio Brown, real quick, what's your thoughts here? If you own Antonio Brown right now, what's your thoughts and what are you thinking of trying to do?
I think you just hold on to him. I honestly don't know. All of these allegations are obviously out there. The NFL is apparently strongly considering putting him on the exempt list, which I think would be a smart idea for at least a week for them to gather some more information. These allegations of sexual assault are obviously serious. They came out very forcefully with a letter denying it with specific details, denying these allegations. But you and I have talked about this kind of stuff before. We have no idea what happened. You have to let this play out a little bit more, and I think to leave him on the field during it would be difficult. Now, do I think it's an exempt list situation like what happened with Adrian Peterson, where he basically didn't play the whole year? I'd say probably not. I have a feeling this will get flushed out pretty quickly, but again, that's a guess. I think if you're an Antonio Brown owner, though, you're between a rock and a hard place. You signed up for the guy, and it's just gotten worse and worse. And maybe you get the lucky break, and he comes back, and he's on the same page with Tom Brady. I just have the feeling. I've started to get the feeling, just a gut call, obviously, that maybe he's just not going to be in New England the whole year.
It's definitely a possibility. The thing I keep coming back to is, I could see them putting him on the commissioner's exempt list. But a lot of times they do try and wait until they have done some kind of investigation. I mean, the cops, the prosecutors have done some kind of investigation, and then they react. If they put him on the commissioner exempt list now, he may be on that until the prosecutors are done with their investigation, going through the whole process.
Year. Yeah.
So it could absolutely be a thing. Right now, if I'm sitting on Antonio Brown, I'm trying to trade him for anything I could possibly get. If somebody out there is willing to give you anything, I would take it at this point because I'm not sure he plays another down. And like you said, may not even be in New England all season.
Yeah, it might just not be worth it for them at a certain point. But we'll see. I mean, these next 72 hours are going to be huge. I don't know if they can put him on the exempt list to your point, but
well, they can do whatever they want when it comes to that. They do whatever they want when it comes to that.
I'm saying I don't know if they will. It's going to be a crazy look if he's out there with the Pats on Sunday.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I mean, they want to cry on one side that these guys have to be exemplary human beings because they're role model to the kids, and then you keep putting these guys back on the field that are really good no matter what they do.
Yeah.
So it's like always been, one hand doesn't do what the other is saying. So that's the NFL for you. Yep. Just craziness. Okay, that's enough Antonio Brown. I've had it with him. We've been talking about him for a freaking month and a half.
Yes, we have.
Well, here we go again with Hunter Henry. He has a tibia plateau fracture in his left knee, and he's out a possible 4 to 6 weeks again. Man, it's like it's just never ending. This kid's got so much talent. I wish he could just put together one full season so we could really see it happen. If you have Hunter Henry right now, are you looking for, what are you looking for?
In one of my leagues, I don't have Hunter Henry at all, no shares. So I got a trade offer immediately when the news came out, saying that person was interested in Mark Andrews, because I have Zach Ertz and now Mark Andrews. It's a keeper league, though, and I can't keep Ertz next year. So Andrews is sort of obviously got off to a great start the other day, but also my plan for the future in potentially having a star tight end. I would ask for a lot in Mark Andrews in that league, but I brought all this up to say that I think Hunter Henry owners know that, like, this is just a bad story. This same injury for J.J. Watt ended his season a couple of years ago. So the 4 to 6 weeks to me sounds very optimistic. And how effective is he going to be when he comes back?
Well, it does really depend on how big a fracture it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, there are different sizes of fractures and where they impact. So again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you. But it's definitely concerning. This is something that goes on way too often for him.
The problem with the Chargers, they have guys like this all over the roster now. Between Keenan Allen, who's awesome, but he's been hurt and knocked out for the season multiple times. Mike Williams, who got hurt again the other day. And now Hunter Henry, who got hurt again the other day. And Travis Benjamin, who was a depth receiver for them for years, was always banged up. I just don't know how they see their way through losing skill position players. Thankfully, Austin Eckler was amazing in relief of Melvin Gordon, but I just, for Phil Rivers, I think he's just at some point going to want some consistency. How about AJ Green to the Chargers?
Oh, there you go.
Although it's another
just one more injury
player.
risk. Let's add him to the roster.
Yeah,
you're right, and it's definitely been a problem for them. You think there's any chance they go out and grab Antonio Gates again?
Never say never, but I think at this point, you have to just say it's over. I mean, last year he didn't look like much of a football player.
No, he did not.
Right. So I think they dragged him off the sidelines last year, but he's 39 years old. He's putting on weight every time he's gotten back out there. If I'm him, I don't want to be out there. He already had major foot issues. I would just think that the paycheck is nice and everything, and it's a good Chargers team, but I feel like this team is snake bitten now. Derwin James, Hunter Henry again, Mike Williams banged up, Melvin Gordon holding out. I don't know how much of this they can survive.
And you're right, and that's absolutely right. Derwin James was absolutely a huge hit for them. One of the better young defenders in the league, so always a hit there. This team last year looked like it had everything in place to take that chance and go that distance, and then they got there and just didn't pull it through. So they may have missed their window. So we'll have to see what happens. At least Phillip Rivers may have missed his window.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I hate that for him because he's been such a good, competitive, consistent quarterback his whole career.
Yeah.
But, it's going to be crazy. Let's keep going. Geis looking like he's going to be out for quite a few weeks now. Let me ask you a question. Is this something that is just going to be a consistent thing with Geis? Is this what we're going to be looking at every time? It's like, I know this is on the other knee, but more than likely that came because he was favoring the other knee.
It's almost definitely because
yeah,
of
right. As someone who's been through that, it definitely works, folks. When you start favoring one leg, the other leg gets grumpy at some point. And that's what it seems to be here. But, even with the one injury last year, every time he just had setback after setback. He had to do multiple extra surgeries. He finally got back to preseason, looked like he was going to be on the field, and he had another mini setback. And, man, I'm just really starting to worry that this kid is ever going to give us anything.
Well, I guess you can look at it both ways. One way is that he's young. It's early in his career. He has every opportunity to bounce back. I think Matt Stafford, right, was a guy who had a bunch of injuries early in his career, and he's been extremely durable since. But it's an entirely different position. And our only sample size of Darius Geis is of him being injured. He literally hasn't played an NFL game yet without getting hurt in it, preseason or otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. In that league I was just talking about, Hunter Henry was a late round keeper. Darius Geis was my keeper. So I've already lost him and N'Keal Harry on that team. I'm trying to keep younger guys around for the long term, but at some point, I got to start cutting people if they're not going to contribute. You're trying to win each and every year. You just can't build for the future every time. But this is a bad one. I think to hear that the teammates of Adrian Peterson were upset the other day that he wasn't active, they're going to get their way because he's going to be a much bigger part of the offense now than originally anticipated.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty stupid of Gruden to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we'll activate him when we think we can run 55 times out of the eye with a fullback." Yeah. Well, dude, you're about to get your wish, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have no choice.
It was a strange scratch, but they played competitively at least in week 1.
Well, heck, they were beating up on Philadelphia in the first half, but Philadelphia didn't know what hit them. It must have been a heck of a halftime speech. I could just hear Peterson now. Are you freaking kidding me? You're letting the Redskins beat you up and make you look like fools? Are you kidding me? In our house? Come on now.
Yeah, but I have Washington under 6.5, so that was a big one for me.
Oh, there you go. I think you're going to get your wish.
I think so.
As much as they did what they did last year with what they had last year, I just think overall it's going to be even worse this year. So we'll have to see. Although there is talk that Trent Williams may come back for week 2, although I haven't seen anything today.
Man.
But it's been a kind of a crazy day for me since our FF Champs website was down from late last night until, almost midday today, and people freaking out, and it's just been nuts.
Well, I'm glad it's back.
I'm glad it's back too. Believe me, makes life a lot easier than going through that crap. So, one of the things we want to talk about, well, I want you to talk about, we got some other things to cover, but you playing, this is your first guillotine league that you're playing in this year, right?
I've got 2 guillotine leagues that I joined. I wanted to do more. It just got a little close to the season, and the drafts were taking a little too long.
So explain to people what a guillotine league is if they don't know.
So you play it. It's sort of best ball style in that you draft a team in this particular guillotine league. It is only 12 players. You start 7. QB, a couple of RBs, a couple of wide receivers, tight end, and a flex. Really simple PPR. So the unique part of this is that there's 17 teams in it. So you're saying 12, it's kind of a thin roster. Well, there's 17 teams. So we're looking at a fairly deep player pool, but it's scored best ball style. So 1 through 17, so go the standings in a given week. But whoever finishes in last place in week 1, 17th place, gets cut. Then it's down, and all of those players get released into the player pool. And then fab bidding suggests who gets what. You got to figure out strategically when to get aggressive, when not to, and it makes it really fun. So good players keep getting released into the player pool. And in week 2, there'll only be 16 teams left, so whoever comes in 16th place gets cut. So that's how guillotine works. Now, week 1, in one of my leagues, guess who came in last place and is already cut?
Oh, not you.
Amazing. And this league started out with me getting Odell as the 16th overall pick. Wow. And on the wraparound, getting Zeke. So when Zeke signed, I was like, I'm good. I'm going to have one of the best teams. I started off with Zeke, Odell, Kenny Golladay, Cooper Kupp. I was like, this is going to be great.
Wow, in a 17-team league, that is a nice start.
Right? But unfortunately, in week 1, none of those guys had a big game. So as part of the strategy and the way that I went, I waited on QB, waited on tight end. I took Jason Witten at tight end, but he scored a touchdown. That's not such a bad performance out of him. And I had Kirk Cousins, who obviously only threw the ball 10 times.
10 times.
But he did throw a touchdown and run for a touchdown. So his performance obviously wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't a Jameis Winston 3-pick performance. But really what happened to me is down the line, all the guys did fine, but nobody had a breakout. and my 1 week link was at the RB2 position, which I thought I could sustain until there were running backs released into it. And I'm not going to get that chance. Rashad Penny came up with a 1.8 yard performance, and that was my dog of the week, but I didn't really expect much out of him. I'm out before I can even get going. I'm stunned that team is out, but that's the way it goes.
And it is the way it goes. But, man, that is tough being the first one
Well,
out.
Zeke Elliott is in the player pool now for week 2. How excited is everybody else?
Well, so is Beckham and Galladay. There's a lot of nice names out there.
So
but you're right. That's where it gets interesting, though. Right. That's where it really gets interesting. Well, at least for the other teams that are still in it, is that where do you spend the fab money? Do you want to grow after these guys? Well, hey, it's Zeke. I'll definitely go after Zeke. But, each week there's going to be more players like this. Yeah. What happens when the guy who's got Christian McCaffrey goes out? It's like it really can get really intense quick in that league. That's why I like that. Those leagues and vampire leagues are really fun. I enjoy both of those. I like those kind of offshoot type of leagues. We talk about that a lot. But I definitely like those kind of things. Anything that's just a little bit different. So one of the things I want to get to that I didn't put on the show loads, but I've been harping all off season that I thought Dante Moncrief was going to be the number 2 in Pittsburgh just because of the experience. And, they obviously had some issues with James Washington. And get to week 1, and Dante Moncrief goes out there and looks like a total bum. Drops a couple passes, has a untimely penalty that kills a drive. Man, it's like I'm trying not to overreact on all of the guys I really liked that didn't do anything, but I'm having a hard time not overreacting to this one because he just looked bad.
I think the Steelers were so bad offensively that it's a bury the tape type of game. You saw how many drops they had, everybody dropping passes. Ben was overthrowing. I thought the passing offense was totally out of sync for the entire game. And I understand where you're coming from. But my opinion all along has been if James Washington was the number 2 receiver, we'd know about it already. But it doesn't mean that he won't have the opportunity to take that job. I don't think they're committed to Dante Moncrief in that capacity.
Well, I don't think so either. I just thought the experience would win out. I don't know. I am not a big fan when wide receivers let the ball get to their body. I'm just not, because we know 90% of the time you're not catching the ball if it hits your body.
Yeah.
It's
it was too many
things.
And that game was lost anyway, but the drop when they had an easy first down was brutal.
Yeah, right. Right there, easy catch and nothing. And of course now they're saying, oh, you know what? He's going to continue to play with his broken finger. You know what? That break was, a month ago? A little less than a month ago now. Said he was fine at the end of training camp. He looked good. Everything seemed to be okay. And now, the finger. My bad, the finger.
Yeah. It's the excuse creeps back into everybody's talk track.
I hated that.
Yeah.
I wanted to go punch him in the mouth. He's going to make me look like an idiot. So let's go over to Kansas City. Of course, Tyreek Hill gets hurt. And before all you people start saying, oh, it's calmer. Stop that crap. I don't want to hear that. But he goes out and he gets hurt. And, of course, Sammy Watkins goes off and plays outstandingly. He has a great big game. Everybody's crowing about him. And, look, we always said he was good when he was healthy. It was the health that was always the issue. Well, the team swears that they figured out what his problem was over the past couple of years and why he couldn't stay healthy. And they swear they got him turned around into a new diet, new workouts, all this stuff that will keep him healthy this year. So, first off, are you buying into the fact that we could see Sammy Watkins stay healthy for 16 games? Or are you still a little leery?
I'm definitely leery. The funny part is when Sammy Watkins came into the league, I really thought, having watched him at Clemson a lot, I thought he was going to be a really excellent NFL wide receiver. And to your point, we have seen it at times. It wasn't somebody that, like a Kevin White, where we just never saw it. It never happened. Sammy obviously played a lot more than Kevin White, and he's been productive. But if they have unlocked that, man, they're going to be even more lethal than last year. Now, Hill, unfortunately, is out, but he's not going on IR. He'll be out for some period of time, and that would make them beyond explosive. I mean, the offense could be even better than last year, which is hard to believe.
Well, they're saying he may be out 4 to 6 weeks, but I doubt that. Like you said earlier, that 4 to 6 weeks might be a little shy there. You're dealing with that clavicle. It
Yeah.
really needs to get firm before he gets back on that field. Otherwise, easily could happen right again. Just one hit could take that right back out.
Watkins is going to be just such an incredible value for everybody that picked him up. He was sliding in drafts. There were some people that like to take chances on him, but if he's in the primary receiver role in that offense, considering his skill set and Pat Mahomes' skill set, he's going to be a fantasy MVP.
Right. As long as he stays healthy, he'll be, he could be a league winner. No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
But let's turn to the other side. Everybody's jumping all over McCole Hardman, and thinking he's just going to jump into that Hill role and go out and have fantastic games in that Hill role. What do you take from this? What are you thinking? Is he somebody you can pick up off waivers this week and put right in your starting lineup because he's on Kansas City?
I think we've seen some evidence from Kansas City that it's next man up reaps the benefits. We saw that with Damian Williams to some extent, although now he's ironically being challenged by LaShawn McCoy, who's the next
who looked
edition.
Pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Boy, I'm glad I didn't say that last week.
Yeah, but I do think what is difficult would be for me to trust the rookie wide receiver right out of the gate to be everything and more in this offense. Now, he's going to have value. I just don't want people to expect that he's going to have Tyreek Hill value. It's not
That's
just
what
about
I keep
speed.
coming back to. Plus, we got to see it. Plus, he's a rookie, so he's going to be up
It's
and
not
down all
just about
season.
speed. Yeah, Tyreek Hill's fast, but he's obviously great at some of the other football.
Right. And that's exactly it. His route tree is much fuller than Hardman's is at this point. Last week, Hardman did play 53 out of 59 snaps after Hill went down. So he was on the field. The bad side to that was he only had one target and didn't catch it. So he was out there. He was on the field for the snap. So that's a good thing. But I just tell everybody there's a chance that if Hardman can't stand up to be a starter as a rookie, we may end up seeing Demarcus Robinson out there getting some of those snaps too. So just temper your expectations with Hardman, people. Before you throw him in your starting lineup this week, let him show us what he can do.
Robinson's an interesting stash, Jim.
Yeah, and that's what I've been saying. You can get him for waivers or after waivers, first come, first serve, for nothing. Put him on your bench and see what happens.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. Just see what happens. It's not like he's ever done anything before. I get that, but they've had better receivers in front of him. Let's see what happens now. Greg Olsen again dealing with the back. Decent game one, looked okay, and then hurt his back, and he's missed several practices this week. They're not sure he's going to go this week. What's your take? If he doesn't go, are you okay with putting Ian Thomas in your starting lineup?
Honestly, we saw when Olsen was out last year, Thomas had some production. And I remember reading this tweet the other day. I believe it was Evan Silva who said that Ian Thomas is a real target in dynasty leagues and has been coming into the season because of the probably impending Greg Olsen retirement. Frankly, to some extent, I was surprised he came back this year. He's dealt with a lot of injuries the last 3 years. I'd imagine this is his final season. So if the Panthers are losing games or whatever, it seems logical to me for Ian Thomas to take a larger share of the offense. But I think with Olsen out, tight end is a part of that offense. I think Ian Thomas is a really nice cheap pickup in a league in Scott Fishbowl where many tight ends are drafted. I picked up CJ Uzomah in this waiver go-around, but Ian Thomas is probably on that level.
Yeah, I liked him last year when he stepped in. I agree with that. Now, I'm going to ask you, because I went back and I watched the Carolina game again, and, man, I've had concerns all offseason about Cam Newton and, trying to teach somebody at his advanced age for a player who's been doing something all his life one way, and at this point trying to change his throwing motion. It just had me a little worried. It's just not something that's very easy to do, especially when you're in the heat of battle, running around for your life on that field. It's so easy to get back into what you've done all your life as opposed to the new way they're trying to teach you. And, when you go back and look at the game last week, it looked like he was throwing from different angles a lot. It just didn't seem to have any consistency to his throwing motion, and it really seemed to affect his accuracy. because of that. Even the presser afterwards, they were asking him, "Oh, do you think you can throw it more than 20 yards downfield now?" And he got all huffy about that. Yeah, if you don't think I could throw it down there, just ask somebody.
Yeah.
But, it was that evident when you go back and watch the game that it did affect his throwing motion, and it affected his accuracy, and obviously it affected his numbers. So what's your thoughts on Cam? Are you worried about Cam going forward, or do you think this is just more of the rust and he'll be fine?
I think it's probably more the latter. I was not bullish on Cam going into this season, but he was obviously, as we're talking about him now, he's a pretty polarizing topic because it is logical to be concerned about his injury issues and shoulder injury at that. But I still think that his athleticism and the number of weapons he has around him on this team could overcome even some inaccuracy issues. Frankly, it has throughout his career when he's been inaccurate. The completion percentage comes up last year with him obviously throwing a lot of shorter passes. I think they went up against a good Rams team, and there's more wood to chop for Cam to get comfortable with what he's doing now. But my level of concern is probably somewhere between 1 and 5 as opposed to 5 to 10.
So you would be okay rolling him out this week and starting him against, well, it is Tampa Bay and he is home.
Yeah. So I don't love the short weeks, but yeah, if Cam's my starter, I'm rolling him out there. I feel pretty good about it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it was just 1 week rust. Last topic I'm going to make for tonight, we'll keep it a little short since just the two of us, but Zeke, like you said, came back, only had the 11 touches. Comes back now, the coaches are saying, yeah, well, we know how much time he missed, so we're still cognizant of how we're going to ease him into the offense. Are you worried going into just, let's say, week 2? Are you worried that, again, he's going to see 11, maybe they up it to 14, 15? Are you worried about starting him, or are you just going to start him and hope they play him more?
I think it's got to be the latter. You can't be worried about starting
What's this ladder you keep talking about? We ain't got no stinking ladder.
So, yeah, we're going to cut down the nets, right? We're going to cut down the nets after the show. So, yes, it's not going to be 25 carries out of the gate. It's just not going to be. And to be honest, Jim, if you and I are just sitting here talking football and not fantasy, we're saying that's a smart thing to do. He hasn't practiced with the team. He hasn't had a full workload of football. I don't care how hard he was training in Cabo. It just isn't the same thing. So smart football management would suggest that they should keep some carries away from him for the first month or even 6 weeks. But as fantasy owners, we're going to get frustrated by it. Just roll him out there. The game he had the other day, it's not what you want every week, but it wasn't terrible, and he was able to put up double-digit points for you.
Right, and you'll take that. You're not happy about it, but with everything that went on leading up to that, you had to figure something was going to be involved. And, this game was out of hand early, as I expected, and why keep pushing him when you really don't have to when there's a long season just getting started? So I agree with that. But I am worried that, let's say he played I think it was a little over 54% of the snaps. Mm-hmm. You had Pollard at just over 32%. Which was higher than I thought he would be. I think we see probably close to that again this week, just as they ease him in. So, again, temper your expectations of him this week, but you can't sit him.
Totally agree.
Yeah, you just can't sit him. He's Zeke Elliott. All he needs is one big play to take it to the house, and you're looking like a fool and feeling like an idiot.
Yeah, that's right.
So, folks, that's our show for tonight. You've been listening to the What the Fantasy Football Show. I'm Jim Day. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz. And, of course, I was joined by Mike Blewitt. You can find him on Twitter at Mike Blewitt. He has one of those hard ones, folks. Mike, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
So, Sundays now, I am hosting on the Sports Grid TV network.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, that's right. I do the DFS Today show leading into Jim's Roto Experts in the morning show, and then I come back for Pro Football Today. So I'm on with Joe Pisapia, and then Gabe Morency is in there, Joe Rainieri, Dane Martinez, a whole cast of characters. We had John Sheeran, the trading director of FanDuel, sit down for a segment with us the other day, which was a lot of fun. So be sure to check me out there on the Sports Grid TV network. And on weeknights, I duck in out of In-Game Live, also on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network and the Sports Grid TV network. So listen to me there for the latest. And I'll be doing tomorrow night, Thursday night football, Bucks Panthers. We'll be doing in-game live.
So when you're doing in-game live, are you literally breaking down bets that are happening in the game right then and there?
That's right. So we'll be talking about, obviously, the games throughout that are going to happen on Sunday and Monday. But during that game, you can have player props, you can have the line movement, you can have the total movement, and deciding whether or not it's smart to place an in-game bet. It can be a lot of fun. In fact, I was at the FanDuel Sportsbook, which is where we broadcast live from on Sundays. I was in the FanDuel Sportsbook the other day, and when Philly got down, I got them plus 2.5. So by the time that they pulled in front, I knew I was home on that bet.
Oh, there you go, Mike. Mike throwing it out there and getting it done. So good job for that, Mike. You can find me, of course, at ffchamps.com, also running the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Also, you can find me on my Friday night podcast, FF Champs After Dark with Andy Singleton, every Friday night live at 10 p.m. on YouTube. And again, I'm on Sunday mornings right after Mike on the Roto Experts in the Morning with Joe Pisapia from 9 to 10 a.m. on Sports Grid Television Network. You can actually watch us on Zumo TV, channel 719. So make sure you get out there and do that. And folks, if you're listening to this podcast, please leave us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, leave us a rating, whatever you can do. Please subscribe to the channel, whatever you can do, help us grow. We appreciate it muchly. We definitely work hard to get this out there for you. So we would absolutely appreciate it. Any help you can give us with that. So thank you all for listening. Good luck in week 2, and we will see you next week. Good night, all.